What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tall Man doing things on the basketball court that he should not be capable of doing. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we're going to be talking about Chet Holmgren. Of course, he is the other rookie center that, in my opinion, is not getting as much coverage as he should be getting. A few months ago, I made a video talking about how the Thunder have the brightest future in the NBA, of course, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, with the Josh Giddey, the Slob Wizard, and a huge part of that equation is Chet Holmgren. Holmgren is competing for coverage with fellow rookie center Victor Wembanyama, and I hate to use the word competing because I feel that there is a spot for both of these young men to be highlighted equally because they are both fantastic, incredible young players who are already showing that they have the potential to be among the elites, not only at their position, but among the NBA as a whole. Of course, as I'm going to show you, courtesy of this very reliable graph, courtesy of Google Trends, Victor Wembanyama has gained considerably more media coverage than Chet Holmgren. I can say with 110% honesty that Victor Wembanyama is the most hyped NBA prospect that I have seen in my lifetime. I'm a little bit too young to remember the hype around LeBron James. I was around like six or seven or so, but I've seen Ben Simmons, Zion, Andrew Wiggins. I remember watching Andrew Wiggins ball his life tapes and like, bro, this guy is going to be the next fucking LeBron and Michael Jordan. Then, of course, Victor Wembanyama, most recently, the NBA has done a very, very good job of marketing their up and coming players. And before we had all this coverage with Victor Wembanyama, there was Chet Holmgren. He was Wemby before we even knew that Wemby was on the map. And it sucks that he has kind of been glanced over for the last year or so because he missed his rookie season with that foot injury. But he's back. He's 100% healthy. And this kid is I don't want to say he's way ahead of schedule, but he's just a stud. He's a star. He is dare I say, a superstar in the making. Just to give you a quick rundown of what this kid is averaging: 17 points, 8 rebounds, shooting 56% from the field, 54% from three, 90% from the line, and, pardon me, is also averaging 2.4 blocks per game. When we get into the advanced analytics, according to win shares per 48 minutes, which is one of my more preferred advanced statistics, he ranks 14th. He ranks 15th, pardon me, at 0.23 win shares per 48 minutes. According to this metric, there are only 14 other players that impact winning at a greater rate than Chet Holmgren. Of course, that is up for debate, but it's just a way to further illustrate the impact that this kid is having almost right away. Still, SGA is pretty clearly the Thunder's best player. Holmgren, however, fits perfectly into that system. I'm going to touch on his offense a little bit, but I feel that I've been most impressed by what he's doing defensively. And I only say that not to undermine his production on offense and his talents on offense, but to step in as a young player who only had 1 year in college, who was injured as a rookie, didn't play at all, got injured in like the first 5 minutes of his first summer league game. To make this level of an impact on defense speaks to his instincts. And to find young players with elite defensive instincts is very rare. But before we get into that, what Chet Holmgren is doing on offense is more or less what everybody expected. He is a bona fide stretch five in every sense of the word, a legitimate stretch five. He can play in the post. He is just showcasing what a great perimeter talent he is. That is what is most striking to me. Of course, he's a lob threat as well, just because he does have incredible size. He's about 7'7" with like a 7'8" wingspan or something, being able to play in the pick and roll. But I think his most valuable output on offense comes in transition, and this comes from his ability to rebound as well. As I mentioned, 8 rebounds already. Not incredible numbers for a guy of his size, but decent enough. And what the pressure that he adds as a ball handler, being able to bring the ball up court, being able to shake a defender at half court and perpetuate the fast break for this young athletic Oklahoma City team is such a dynamic that it's so hard to defend against because you can't just load up on him at half court. Like, you have to account for Giddey, and you have to account for Lou Dort, and you have to account for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and you have to account for Jalen Williams. It's just remarkable that he is this deft with the basketball and this agile at his size. Additionally, you have him when he's not bringing the ball up, him operating as the trailer, being able to step into a 24, 25, 26-foot three-pointer is, again, a skill that not every big has developed. It's going to be really interesting to see how he plays out as a post player. He does operate very well in like the high post, the elbow extended, the free throw line area. He's got a very, very smooth jump shot. Another benefit to that is he's so massive and his release point is so high that it is difficult for anyone to block his shot, let alone if he gets into a mismatch with a smaller guard. He's just a handful to defend at this level already. With that being said, I do think the one area that I want to see him improve on is speeding up his release a little bit. And from everything I've seen, he catches it at a relatively low point. Now, of course, some of that is just his motion, some of that is the passes that he's receiving. But as a big, you never want to keep the ball down low. It's just easy for guards to strip you. This is a universal rule. This is a universal rule for every power forward, every center. Keep the ball high and out of reach from the smaller players. But with that said, as long as he's able to get into his motion and get that release point off, it's going to be almost impossible for anybody to block. And we're seeing shades of that already. So everything that Chet Holmgren is doing offensively is phenomenal. Maybe he develops into a little bit more of an actual playmaker. Right now, decision-making on offense isn't really the best. I mean, he's averaging 2.7 assists to 2 turnovers, so he's got a plus ratio in that regard. But I think that his potential is more of a stretch 5 than a 0.5, if that makes any sense. I'm imagining a more skilled Brook Lopez than I am like a Nikola Jokic or a Sabonis type center, which is fine because, again, you have the other pieces who are capable of facilitating. As I mentioned previously, everything he's doing on offense is phenomenal, but I think not all of his impact, but his most, I don't want to say impactful impact because it's just stupid. English first language, by the way. Chet on defense he's already an elite defender. I don't think that anyone is going to dance around that. I do not believe that to be a hot take. If you don't want to use the word elite, the worst you could say is that he's a great defender, because he is a great defender, especially as I already mentioned, being a guy who missed his first full season entirely. He's only got 7 games under his belt, and he's showing flashes that you don't typically see with young players. The first thing I noticed with him is that his instincts, knowing how to block shots, the appropriate timing on blocking shots. Another thing I've noticed is that when he does help, he doesn't overhelp, he doesn't overreact, he doesn't overcommit to anybody's drives. I believe there was a play against Cleveland. One of their guards attacked off the dribble. Holmgren rotated over to help, affected that shot, or affected that play, and then was able to block, I believe it was Evan Mobley, on the subsequent possession. You can teach that, but guys aren't going to pick up on that on their first or second year unless they already have the instincts necessary to do that. He's also great in the pick and roll. Again, a lot of this is not overreacting to either the ball handler or the roll man. He plays within himself. Not overextending allows him to quickly recover if he does get beat or if his man slips behind him or something, which I've seen him do on multiple occasions. I believe that a lot of this improvement is the result of being around an NBA organization, and a quality NBA organization at that. Even though Chet didn't play in any games for the Thunder as a rookie, he was still hanging out around the team. He was still in the practice facility. He was still watching film. He was still involved with the coaches. And being able to study these possessions, it allows you to pick up on mistakes that you don't make as a player. And again, I don't want to get to like his mental, but it's very difficult for young players to learn how to play through mistakes and to not get rattled. And to see this play out without actually having to potentially have your confidence rattled is a huge thing that I'm not so sure is mentioned enough. Like, he's just an overall great defender. Is also averaging 1 steal as well. The only thing is that he is still not the cleanest decision maker, but again, this guy is 21 years old. If you guys have been following me for any length of time, whenever I do discuss defensive bigs, shot blocking bigs in particular, one thing I like to look at is the ratio between the blocked shots and personal fouls. Generally, the elite shot blockers will have either in a neutral amount, an equal amount of blocked shots to personal fouls, or positive. If it is going to be negative, it'll be like 3 block shots to 3.3 fouls. You look at anyone like Hakeem, Dikembe Mutombo, Ben Wallace, they all had positive ratios regarding block shots to personal fouls, and that is something that you learn the more games you play, the more film you watch. You become in you obtain an even better understanding of how to play the center position and how to differentiate between just trying to alter a shot or trying to block it, which is huge for any shot blocker because your biggest asset is being disruptive around the rim, and you can't do that if you're going to be in foul trouble. And young players in particular struggled with this. As a Nets fan, I only recently saw Nick Claxton overcome this after his first and second years in the league, and now he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I feel that Chet Holmgren is on the same trajectory. He already has a very solid foundation of how to play within an NBA defense and how to play within himself within that NBA defense as well. This is also, again, as I mentioned, this is a testament to the Thunder's coaching and just the organization as a whole. The season is still young. I'm sure that some of these numbers are going to normalize. I'm more so talking about the shooting percentages. Actually, I know for a fact that his 3-point percentage is going to normalize. There's absolutely no fucking way that he shoots 53% from the lot from behind the arc for the entirety of the season. However, 38 to 40% is entirely within his range, and that is a very respectable number for any three-point shooter, let alone a stretch five. And then again, the spacing that has, especially with guys like Jalen Williams and SGA who live to attack downhill, who live to slash, who are at their best when they're putting pressure on the defense. I'm glad that Chet Holmgren is everything that he was billed as before the coverage kind of tapered off. And I don't want to seem like I'm throwing any shade to Wemby because I think that Wemby is also phenomenal. I think that he is worthy of all the coverage that he's received. I do think it was maybe a little overblown at times. The dick riding was kind of insane at certain points, but if you're a sports league, you want to prop up the future of your league. I think you can do that with Wemby, and I think that the NBA should highlight Chet Holmgren a little bit more. They should highlight all of their young talent as much as they possibly can. I will close out on this. Chet Holmgren is one of 11 players, is one of 11 rookies to average 17 points, 2 blocks, and 8 rebounds. If he continues this, he will join a list where 9 of those 11 players are Hall of Famers. The 10th guy is him. The 11th guy is Victor Wembanyama. The numbers speak for themselves. The tape matches the numbers. He passes the eye test. He passes the analytics test. There is really no way you can say that Chet Holmgren is not a very, very good player and has the potential to be one of the better players in the league. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. Everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video. Drop a comment as well. It really helps out with the algorithm. And with that, I'll catch you all on the next one.